There is no denying that Eliud Kipchoge has cemented his name as the greatest marathoner to ever live over the previous decade. He has won countless marathon majors, he set the world record twice, and most relative to the current situation, he has won 2 Olympic gold medals, winning the Rio Olympics in 2016 and also winning the Tokyo Games in 2021. Kipchoge's career is remarkable considering how consistent he has been in an event where people very often cannot even finish a full marathon. And moving into 2024, the primary goal is without question winning a 3rd Olympic marathon title. And that is something that no athlete in the history of the world has ever done. With the Paris Games now officially underway and track set to start in about 1 week, a lot of new information is coming out about the developments and the rivalries that are coming into play when it comes to running. And looking into Kipchoge's current marathon situation, where he's looking to win a 3rd title, we just learned some very new and pretty crazy information about this year's marathon in Paris. And it actually represents probably the single biggest challenge for Eliud Kipchoge in his championship racing history. Now, in 2016 and in 2020, the courses in Rio and in Tokyo were relatively flat, which is actually a pretty common occurrence when it comes to marathon running. Courses usually don't have too much elevation. In fact, if we look at the Berlin Marathon, which Kipchoge has won on 5 separate occasions, it is almost dead flat through the entire course. It's basically a fact to say that Kipchoge runs unbelievably well on flat courses, given his marathon history in London, Berlin, and the previous 2 installments of the Olympic Games. But we just recently learned about what this year's marathon course looks like in Paris. But despite what many people thought would be the case for this year's marathon course, we actually might be set to see the single most difficult marathon out of any major marathon in the world. Here's a comparison of 4 separate marathon courses. At the top, we've got Boston, followed by New York, followed by the 2020 U.S. Olympic Trials in Atlanta, which was actually known as one of the hilliest marathon courses that those athletes had ever run, and then as the 2024 Paris Olympic Marathon that has a total gain and total loss in feet, more than any of these other courses. When I first saw this, I was thinking that this was some kind of mistake, because especially Boston is known as one of the hilliest courses in the world. And it's also important to note that the Boston course is where Kipchoge had incredible difficulties in 2023. But no, this is actually accurate. And if we look at this course profile, we can see that almost every bit of the elevation gain and loss comes in the very middle of the course. Right around 15 kilometers, the athletes will go uphill for pretty much 5 straight kilometers, and this goes from 50 meters up to around 200 meters. Following this, there is a pretty significant downhill for the next 7.5K or so, and then from 27K up to 30K, you are looking at another incredibly steep hill, followed by what might be the most significant downhill portion of a race in any Olympic marathon, and certainly in any race that these athletes will run in 2024. Elevation gain and loss like this opens up so many possibilities for marathon complications, and for Kipchoge, who is certainly older than most athletes in this race, many people are saying that this gain and loss will almost certainly put a huge detriment to his marathon chances. When talking with some of the race organizers about this race, many people actually talked with the head of the Paris organizing committee, Tony Essongue, who said that this is a challenge without precedent. And when talking with 2-time Olympic marathoner Ed Eyestone, he said it would be like taking Boston Hills and sliding them into 16K, but even that pales in comparison to what these guys are going to be asked to do. He also said that I don't think there's really anything comparable outside of what some of the mountain runners hit. Obviously, with hills like this, a lot of people are wondering what the tactics will be moving through this race, and many people are also wondering who has the strength to run these kind of hills. There's so much set to happen in this year's Olympic marathon, and looking at this course profile is genuinely a scary prospect. For Kipchoge to win his 3rd Olympic marathon, he will have to run a nearly perfect race. He will have to time his moves, he will have to conserve his energy, and he will also have to ascend and descend without losing too much momentum, which will certainly be a very challenging ask with such a huge field assembled racing. It's also important to note that he will be racing against Kenenisa Bekele, and it's very interesting to note that they first raced in a world championship in the city of Paris all the way back in 2003. There are so many levels of history set to potentially take place in this year's Olympic marathon. It's got more gain and loss than any other marathon in Olympic history. It's one of the most intimidating marathons in Olympic history. Kipchoge potentially could break the record for longest stretch between world titles with his 2003 world title in Paris and potentially his 2024 Olympic marathon in Paris again. And this will almost certainly be Bekele's and Kipchoge's final World Championship or Olympic appearance. So there is a huge amount of history on this course, and it is going to be a super interesting watch. And with all of this in mind, I honestly have no clue how to evaluate this. I would love to hear your thoughts on this Olympic marathon. What do you think Kipchoge's chances are? What do you think Bekele's chances are? And who is the favorite in your mind moving into this Olympic Games? Thanks for watching, everyone. And as always, until next time.